Welcome, everybody. Welcome. This is the Power Talk live stream, and we are ready to have a juicy conversation today about the marriage solution. With me, I have an amazing person, Tim Kellis, sorry, and he will be talking to you about, can we save marriages or can we not? So in order to know, you're going to have to stick around so that you can ask him any questions if you desire. If this is a replay, you come back and ask any questions that are in your mind and may be causing confusion, because it is the marriage solution talk. So thank you, Tim. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and why the marriage solution?
Well, first of all, Dr. B, thank you very much for the opportunity to come here and talk on your show. I'm really excited about sharing with your audience. Yes, I have solved the marriage solution, and so let me give you the background, because it's really important to understand where I came from, because I'm, in fact, not a psychologist. I actually have an engineering degree and an MBA, and I was the first semiconductor analyst on Wall Street to focus on the communications market. And so in essence, what I'm saying there is I'm very, very analytical. If you don't know what a Wall Street analyst does, we analyze industries. And so so then the backdrop, well, the other part of my story, Dr. B, though, it's important. When I was 12 years old, I told my mom I wanted to be a Catholic priest when I was 12 years old. And then I discovered girls, so that whole career path kind of got derailed. But the point is I was also raised with a moral compass. And at the height of the market, working on Wall Street in 2000, it was a girl I had known for 8 years, but she always had a boyfriend. I always had a girlfriend, but this was in Dallas. We got together after knowing each other for a long time without relationships, and we fell in love. And as any of you know who has fallen in love for the right reasons, it went very quickly. You know, we'd known each other for a long time. We were good friends, but we got together and we fell in love. We're going to spend the rest of our lives together. This was the woman of my dreams. I was going to spend the rest of my life with this woman. Then we started fighting. But more importantly, when we went to the therapist, and I realized the therapist wasn't helping. It was the pain. It's hard to describe in a conversation. Just an unbelievable pain for me. And with my analytical mind and my moral upbringing, my only outlet was to solve the problem. And so I spent it was my cathartic experience to get through this. I spent nearly 2 years researching and writing this book. I read 100 books in a 10-month period. That's 2.5 books a week, nonstop for 10 months. And then I moved to Costa Rica, where I wrote the book. It took me 9 months to write the book. But this book solves the marriage problem. So let me just give you just kind of a real short insight on what I'm talking about. Have you ever heard of Carl Jung?
Yes.
Okay. So anybody watching this who has not heard of Carl Jung, it was my biggest discovery. Carl Jung was 19 years younger than Freud. Freud looked up to Jung so much that he not only considered him his heir apparent, but also his son. And as we all know, Freud's foundation, which is still the foundation of the industry today, is the biology conclusion based on sex. And let's just say Jung disagreed with Freud. They had their famous split in 1912, and Jung went much further than Freud did to figure out how the mind works. 20% of my book is a summary of Jung's autobiography, which I read 9 times before I was able to summarize it. One of my ultimate objectives is to finally replace Freud with Jung. It's unbelievable that this industry still follows Freud. In the developed world that we live in today, it's unbelievable that they still follow the biology theory, which is Freud's theory, not that we're human beings, that we're animals. And that's why I'm doing this. The only reason why I can comfortably and confidently tell anybody that I have solved the marriage problem is because I forgave my parents when I was 25 years old. That turns out to be the first step in the psychological development. Again, I could talk for a long time about this, but this is a big deal. This is a big deal for me.
It is. It is a big deal because how many divorces are happening a year? Do you have that statistics?
Well, you use the 50% divorce rate as the rule of thumb. That's kind of is it 60 or 40? Does it really make a difference? That's a lot of broken families. In fact, ultimately, what I am doing, Dr. B, is I am lowering the divorce rate. I am putting my foot down. It's about time somebody comes out with a body of knowledge, which I do have, to teach couples how to create lifelong marriages, which is what I do.
Right. I think it's really important because I'm embarrassed to say that I've been divorced twice.
Listen, in fact, what's so interesting about there's no social stigma to that any longer.
Right.
So what? No big deal.
It's no big deal, but sometimes it's still like in my head, like with the first marriage, like he was the best man in the world. And yet, like, when you feel and you think you fall out of love, can you fall in love again?
Well, the way I answer that question, Dr. B, and I get asked that question all of the time. If you were in love at the beginning, yes, you can get back there. If you did for the right reasons, if the beginning, because what couples are not taught, this is what I basically teach. Is I teach couples how to eliminate arguments, conflict resolution. In essence, what I do is I teach couples how to become friends. The solution to the problem is equality. Nobody's in charge. We know if we think about it, the problems in relationships today are control. One or both are trying to control the relationship. So what I do is I neutralize the power drive so that both have an equal say. What I in essence do is I teach couples how to take on the world instead of taking on each other. But when you're taking on each other, that's hard to live with somebody when you're not getting along with them. And that's usually what happens when people get off track, so to speak. And so when I get them back on track, I get them going in the direction they should have been going from the beginning.
I think it's really important that people that want to save their marriages, because I know several, like I know a lot of women and men that want to save the marriage, but there's this struggle. And then, I mean, I remember as a young girl seeing my parents fight and argue. And maybe that's why I got a divorce, because I was like, why are they putting up with all this crap, right? The arguing and the screaming. And I thought it was misery for them. So I think in my little brain, I thought at the time, why stay? And then sometimes when I see these couples like, with that struggle, like, what would you advise them? I mean, they don't want to hear it from me because I'll probably tell them, leave each other. But what would you advise them?
No, this is where I get into the nitty gritty. Okay. This is one of the major innovations that I'm introducing into the psychology industry. Because the reality is, if you understand what psychology is supposed to do is help people that are having trouble with love. That is what psychology is supposed to be. They haven't figured it out yet. But here's my insight. Okay. First of all, conflicts that are handled the right way are called disagreements. Disagreements are logical, they're problem solving, and they're forward looking. But what I do in my big insight is I discuss arguments. Okay, once you understand the dynamics of an argument, you can actually solve it. And so what happens, we go through a mental process that leads to us becoming angry and judgmental. Okay, I call it the hierarchy of the argument. It starts off with an insecurity. Say, as you just described, my mom and your mom and dad fought. Okay, and you saw that. Quite honestly, I had the same thing. My parents stayed married, but they fought every day. So I had the same experience. So what happens when you haven't gone through the healing process, which I'll get into at the end of this, you bring that fear into your present day life. Okay, you're afraid of your marriage ending up like your parents' marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, in relationships, whatever you are afraid of happening actually happens. Okay, it's a weird twist of psychology. But the point is that fear, mom and dad fought a lot, and there was bad arguments like you just described. That leads to a prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is a preconceived opinion. I call them relationship prejudices. Same like our social prejudices, but it's a preconceived opinion based on something emotional that's not been thought through. Because you looked at your parents' marriage and brought that fear into your marriage, and now you have a prejudice. It turns out our mental problems are prejudices. Okay? And that prejudice, and by the way, this is the first time anybody's probably ever heard that, because I'm the one that's discovered that our mental problems are prejudices. You will not find that written anywhere else on the planet, by the way, just so you know. It's one of my big innovations that I'm introducing into the psychology industry. But the point is that prejudice then leads to being judgmental, which then leads to anger. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm doing, Dr. B, just to summarize, and I'll be short on this, we can elaborate if you'd like, but what I'm doing is I'm connecting the dots between fear and anger. Mm-hmm. If you understand when your partner is getting mad at you, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the fear of what you're doing, triggering something in them from their past. Mm-hmm. That's why when you understand conflicts exist, because love is vulnerability. And vulnerability is the fear of getting hurt. When you fall in love, you get over that wall and you open yourself up to your partner. At the very beginning, the psychology industry calls it the false facade. You're putting your best foot forward, as you should, but ultimately, what I teach couples is to be able to expose those things about their past that they may not be so comfortable to discuss. But you have to create a judgment-free zone within the marriage, realizing that your partner isn't going to think less of you, but because you say, mom and dad fought every day, or mom and dad had horrible arguments, and I'm afraid you're able to bring these things up, and then you're able to solve them. So when I say that I forgave my parents when I was 25 years old, the biggest influence on most people in their marriage is their relationship with their parents. Because that's where you first learn about love. And what you do is what I did when I forgave my parents was I opened my eyes up to the objectivity of my life, not filtered through the lens of my parents' marriage from my upbringing. That's what forgiveness does. Forgiveness frees you from the anxiety of things from your past, mainly your relationship with your parents. And now we get into the psychology of the relationship, which is another first. Believe it or not, there's no psychology component in any book. I've read 24 relationship books. Forgiveness is not mentioned in a single one. Empathy is not mentioned. There's no psychological components. 5 love languages has no. So what I'm doing is I'm introducing psychological concepts, and I'm teaching couples directly so they understand psychologically what's going on between the two of them.
Wow.
There's a lot there. I understand. There's a lot there, but it's a quick summary. There's a lot, believe it or not, there's a whole lot of information. It took me a lot of work, a lot of analytical time. I've been working on this thing for 20 years to get my head around understanding the dynamics when relationships are not working so that couples can unwind the trap they find themselves going down when that relationship gets off track.
And sometimes I feel that because you are so involved in the emotions that you can't continue to see that love, right? That where you fell in love with this person, you can't see it anymore because it's that filter, that blinding filter and then that's why you have all these divorces. So
well, the goal is not to find love. That turns out to be the easy part. The goal is to discover the barriers that we have created that keeps us from opening up to love. That's what we're trying to. What are the psychological blockages that we have that keep us from being vulnerable? That hold us back from exposing all of us to our partner?
Mm-hmm.
And once you unlock those barriers, those blockages, or what Jung called the shadows, because you bring your shadows into your marriage and you inherit your partner's shadows. And when the two of you learn what I teach, you learn to become what I call mini therapists with each other. So that you become the shoulder that your partner cries on, not anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
This is when two people learn to grow together,
Right.
which is what you're supposed to be doing in life.
And I think what happens, Tim, is that like people that don't face their fears and that keep living this inner experience of memories because of relatives or something that they've kind of adopted, right, in their lifetime, if they don't get this coaching that you provide or other people provide, I think that they'll experience what I went through, which is you go from person to divorce because you think they're the problem and
Right.
you keep blaming it on them. Yet, I mean, I'm afraid to find anybody else because I don't want to go through the same thing again, you know? So,
Well, now that you've met me, you won't have to worry about it because you know there's a place you can turn to for help. No, I'm serious. One of the things I do is I reduce the anxieties that single people have about getting married.
that's powerful.
It's huge. This is what I'm talking about. Because remember, the goal, and this has to do with life in general, but most significantly within marriages, the goal is to make conscious what is unconscious, or else it appears as fate. That's one of Carl Jung's famous lines.
I love it.
Because most relationships are unconscious experiences. You just fall in love and then you start arguing and you react, fight or flight. You're not really aware. You don't rise above the darkness of those conflicts, because when you're arguing, you're unconscious. Dr. B, you're the biggest idiot I've ever met. I am in an unconscious state when I'm yelling at you. I'm not consciously aware. This is when we get into our instinctual response mechanisms, which are the fight and flight. Those are done unconsciously.
I love it. And I think that once you begin to make you said the goal is to make the unconscious conscious, right?
Exactly. Or else it will appear as fate. Let me explain that though. If, for example, if your dad wasn't an affectionate towards you, think about this simple analogy. So you didn't get a lot of affection from your dad, and you go into your marriage with this fear that your partner is not going to give you affection because you didn't get it from your dad. So when your partner does give you affection, but not how you want it to happen, you get angry at them. I have people all the time telling me the stories. I'm working with a couple now. The wife got mad at the husband because the husband woke up, he works nights and he usually sleeps in the morning. He woke up early one morning to help her get the kids ready for school. And she got mad at him because she thought he was trying to control. There's a whole psychological thing I went through with him on why, but she got mad at him for helping her get the kids ready for school. These are unconscious reactions. You're not aware. Again, Dr. B, you're an idiot. I'm not logical. I'm not being reasonable. I'm not thinking through why I'm calling you an idiot. I'm not being aware. I'm not conscious. When people get into that emotional state, they are not aware that they are in that state. That's why what I do is I bring them back to the logical mode. To argue with a person who has abandoned the use of reason is like administering medicine to the dead.
Wow.
Think about that one for a second. Once you go past the logical disagreement conversation to the emotional argument conversation, you get to a point of no return. Arguing is a control mechanism. That's what it is. What I'm saying, what I'm calling you an idiot, is I'm trying to control you. You're not responding to me in the way I want you to respond. I'm out of fear. I'm not being logical with you like we were business partners. I'm emotional with you because you and I are in an emotional relationship. So when I'm yelling at you, I'm unconscious of what I'm doing, but I am I'm basically well, like it's my issue, but this is what psychologically causes us to get angry. I am unaware of what's going on, and I'm being irrational. I'm not being logical. There's no solution to an argument. I am trying to control you when I'm calling you names, so that you say, "Oh, okay, Tim, you're right. I'm wrong. I'm sorry to mean to upset you." And then I won the argument that we had. Argument is about winning and losing, not about finding the truth or solving the problem.
I like that. Wow. So tell me about cheaters in a marriage. Like, I mean, I have to go into that, right?
Because no. Here's my point. That the reason why I'm laughing is
when people get divorces. So, what's the marriage solution for the cheater?
This is the reason why I'm laughing is this is one of my real statements.
Mm-hmm.
Infidelity is not the cause of problems in your marriage. Infidelity is the result of problems in your marriage.
Wow.
Okay. If you want to, if you're on a solid footing, if your marriage is on solid grounds, that is not even in the ballpark. That is not even a possibility that people will cheat on each other. But we all know that we want to be happy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when we're not happy in our marriage, what do? We look for other outlets. We eat too much. We watch television. We sleep with not the cause of the problems.
Right.
So you got to get to the sources. You got to get to why you're not getting along with each other.
I think that's powerful because I think the majority of the people feel that infidelity is the problem why people get a divorce. But I see what you're saying, that's the result of a problem.
Exactly. Well, this is what I mean. Listen, it's so important to understand we fall in love with somebody's character. We fall out of love of somebody's behavior because we get inundated from the psychology industry on behavioral advice. You have to understand what the influence of the psychology industry has had on us is we now look at what people do, not who they are. Like Martin Luther, I have the Martin Luther King, I have a dream speech in my book. Judge them not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. We have lost that depth of who we are as a society to a large extent because of the psychology industry. I know I'm being hard on it, but on the industry. But what I'm doing is advancing the industry to turn around what has been happening to us socially, because we get a lot of influence from these professionals that give us guidance, and when they give us behavioral guidance, that's what we focus on, and that's the problem. Is we lose sight of who we are is not what we do. Who we are is what we believe, what our belief system. But we lose, and this again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get us back to a more depth society, to a deeper society, to a more significant, to where things that should be important to us are important to us as opposed to what's important to us today, which is physical stuff. I mean, we really need to understand what's important in our lives. And quite honestly, the conclusion that I take people to is the most important thing in your life is that person you sleep next to every night. Not anything, not your job. Your children are just slightly below that, but not your job, not how big your house is or your friends. None of that stuff is supposed to be more important than that person you sleep next to. But obviously, we've lost sight of that. We've now put our spouse at the lowest end of the rung instead of the highest. So I have to completely reverse the priorities in people's lives, and that's what I do.
And I think your coaching is powerful because there's a balancing act between partners that I don't think it's really happening and taking place because there's an imbalance. Either you become a workaholic or some other addiction that we adopt in our behavior, like you said, that impacts our relationship.
Absolutely.
right? So I
Absolutely.
love what you're doing. So I really applaud you. And for those of you that are watching, this is the Power Talk live stream. With me is Tim Kellis, and we're talking about the marriage solution. So you can post and ask any questions that you desire, and we'll come back and look and see if you have any questions, and they'll be answered. But you need to connect with Tim Kellis because there's something happening right now in the world where there's a lot of single parents or a lot of divorces that I think Tim has beautiful processes that he will guide you on how to save your marriage and how to get rid of beliefs, attitudes, behaviors that are impacting it. Because he said something powerful. I'm going to put it here. He said, fidelity is the result of the problem of marriage. And he also said, the goal is to make the unconscious conscious. And I think that is powerful. Now, how can people that are watching, how can they connect with you?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to email me. My email address is my name, Tim Kellis, Kellis, at Happy Relationships. That's plural. Yes, I own that domain name. Tim Kellis at happyrelationships.com. I have founded a group on Facebook. The name of the group is called the Marriage Support Group. And we are right at 10,000 members at the time of us doing this conversation, Dr. B. And so, one of the things that's unique about this group is I allow other marriage experts to come in to contribute. Marriage groups, basically, I've never done that before, not the ones that I've run across, but I allow other marriage experts to come in and contribute. So it's a real dynamic community of people giving marriage help and people looking for marriage help. But it's my group, and you're more than welcome to connect with me there. Every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I host a room on Clubhouse. Mm-hmm. So if you follow me on Clubhouse, I have Clubhouse allows you to add 13 co-hosts, so I have 13 other marriage experts that I invite to join me on my Clubhouse call. But the easiest way is to email me at timkellis at happyrelationships.com.
And then you're having an event. Tell us about this event.
What I normally do to get started with couples is I host it's free. Just does this guy really know what he's talking about? Kind of, opportunity to get an introduction started. It's a free 2-hour seminar. In the chat room of this talk is the link, the Eventbrite link. My next one is to say a date is recorded, but July 31st of 2021. So if this is watched after that, you just have to find the latest room that I have on Eventbrite. But right now, before the end of July, people can go to the link in the chat and they can connect on that link, and I'll host my 2-hour seminar at the end of July.
That's beautiful. And for those of you that are watching, I'm Dr. B, and what I do is I connect amazing people like Tim Kellis. I have the B Global, and it's all about connecting, interviewing, bringing solutions to your home, to your life, so that, I don't have all the answers, but I do have amazing people like Tim that will help you get to that next level in your life, whatever it might be. So keep connecting with me because I will bring amazing people like him. And we're asking for 3 favors. The first favor, ask any questions that you have because we're here for you. 2, like this video. And then 3, share. Why? Because there's one person out there looking for Tim. And you will be that person that will help them connect with Tim and connect with me, and so that we can connect people to the right source so that they can get the help that they're looking for. In this case, it's all about the marriage solution. So we're asking that you help us connect people with Tim that are going through problems in relationships and here we are connecting you with Tim. And also here's my if you want to put your group, Tim, here.
Yeah, let me do that. Hang on a sec. Yeah, I got those. Just give me a second.
Okay. And for you, if you want to connect with me, then the face.com Dr. B Global is down below. If you want to be interviewed or you want to be on my show, and then this is the place to connect. I do have panels. So come join me because people are looking for you out there. And I am connecting entrepreneurs, business owners with people that are searching for you. So let me go ahead and put Tim's group here. For those of you that are looking for him, you will find it listed and it's going down below. So it's really easy for you to find, especially there's sometimes places that I can't put the links, but you can find it here.
It's a great group. It's a great group too. It's been really, the response of that group has been awesome. We're adding about 1,000 or 2,000 people a month to that group.
I love it. I love it. Now, Tim, I always ask everybody that comes to my show, like, what is a quote that you would like people to walk away with? Because I think that they help the brain kind of.
What is a quote?
A quote. Or it could be your quote. A statement.
I have all kinds of Timisms. One of these days I'll actually publish a book. But probably one of the most profound quotes that I know of, I actually learned about as a child. Did you ever read the book To Kill a Mockingbird? Did you ever read that book?
It's been a while, yes.
Okay. There's a line in that book that changed my life. And the line in that book is, if you want to understand a man, you have to walk in his shoes. One of the most profound things that I teach couples is to understand their partner's perspective. If you want to understand your partner, walk in their shoes.
I love it. I love it. You know, it's like you have to be able to be in their shoes. And I often tell people, like, what would you be thinking or believing or feeling if you were in my shoes? Or I try to put people in other people's shoes so that they can experience and feel it. And it's like, you don't have to agree. You just have to know and understand them. So I love.
Yeah, but here's the point, Dr. B. In fact, I call it Jesus' #1 rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. Do you realize our divorce rate would go to 0?
Yeah.
If we treated our spouse like we wanted them to treat us?
Absolutely, yeah.
Huge to understand that. Huge to understand that. If you can understand it from your partner's perspective, you guys treat each other like you want to be treated, the problem is what?
It's an easy concept, and yet it's a difficult one to practice. But I love it. I love what you just said.
Gotta set goals in life. How do you play a game if you don't know the rules?
Exactly. And there's a lot of rules in life. You know, there's in everything you do, there's rules. And I love that I just connected with you because it gives me hope for, you know, my grandkids. It's like, I want them to be loved and forever. You know, I always wanted to grow old with my partner. That was one of my goals. So I love what you're doing. And, you know, my parents lived together and they were married for 50 years. So even if they struggled and fought, they lasted for a long time. So I just want to applaud.
Mine did too. But you know what they taught us though? And again, we're in our 2nd and 3rd generation of divorce. So one of the things that couples always comment when they work with me is, I'm never about pointing fingers. This is not I'm right and you're wrong. It's never about that. But the reality is our parents taught us that when time gets tough, you stick it out. I honestly believe, again, this is not pointing any fingers at anybody, but I honestly believe that if your parents got divorced, they actually taught you that when times get tough, you might think about quitting.
Right. Yeah. Well, my parents lasted until they died.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I think it was the experience that I took with me, you know.
Yeah.
That created that belief of just quit. You don't have to put up with it. But I really like that you came back in my life in the sense of giving me this concept. You have, the goal is to make the unconscious conscious. Like, I love it. I love it. And I have to be more aware of what we're thinking. In fact, I was listening to Bob Proctor, and he actually said something similar like what you're saying. He said, what you're living now is the results of what you have, and you think that that's your experience, so you keep repeating it instead of going within and creating it and then birthing it, right? He didn't say it in those words, but I kind of modified it.
Well, those positive thought speakers, and there's a lot. Tony Robbins is a big one on that as well. But what they're doing is they're trying to get you through those negative self-talk conversations that you have with yourself. And this is why I'm adding to that dialogue. When I forgave my parents, I never say anything negative to myself about myself. This is the goal when you get into the notion of mental development. When your self-talk, the way you talk to yourself, is not destructive, and that's what those positive thought speakers are doing when they talk like that. Is they're getting us where we're talking, because as I like to say, Dr. B, God don't make no mistakes. Okay, you're a perfect human being. I'm a perfect human. Everybody listen to this, as much as people listen to this will disagree with me at their own reasons, but God doesn't make any mistakes. We are all perfect human beings, and this is how we're born. As I like to joke, kids are brilliant. We don't learn to be idiots until we become adults. I mean, for some reason, when we become adults and we have more and more life experiences, and we haven't been taught really how to process those experiences. That's one of the big things that I do. Then we take these negative experiences personally. And that's how we get this negative self-talk with ourselves. We have to figure out how to get through that. Right.
Well, I love what you're doing. I congratulate you for that. And again, I just want to tell the audience, whoever's listening, get in touch with Tim Kellis. And if you want to save your marriage, and I think you should try, because we need to change what's happening in the world and really create that love and bonding with our kids and family, and no more broken homes. So thank you, Tim, for that.
I appreciate Dr. B. Again, my mission is to lower the divorce rate. I take this very seriously. I'm very passionate about it. Anything I can do to keep couples from going through the pain of divorce. In fact, that's one of the things I tell couples that are considering. I'm like, you have no clue the road that's in front of you. And nobody ever says, boy, I enjoy it. People are appreciative when they're through the process. But I've never heard a single person say, boy, that was so much fun getting divorced. Nobody ever says that.
Absolutely. No, it wasn't fun. It's very painful. So, but thank you so much. And again, I'm Dr. B, and I am here with Tim Kellis. If you want to connect with him, you will find the link below to find his Facebook group. If you want to continue connecting with me, you will also find the link below here in the video. And especially if you want to be in the Power Talk, let's connect. If you have a message and you want to transform lives, this is the place to come and connect with people that want to transform people around the world. So again, Tim, thank you so much. And thank you to all for listening.
Thank you, Dr. B. Again, the time here, I appreciate you allowing me to share with your audience.